All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's virtual summit. My name is Hannah Zwick, and I'm the Director of Marketing at CourseKey. For those of you unfamiliar with us, we're a mobile attendance tracking platform used on more than 80 campuses across the country. We're very excited to be facilitating today's events. We hope you joined some of the ones earlier this morning, and we hope you have time later on in the day to join us for the next few. For the next hour, we're going to be hearing from Dr. Angie Norbeck on the topic, how to get your instructors to embrace new tech initiatives. She's the Vice President of Academic Affairs at Broadview University, and she's led the implementations of new technology initiatives on her campuses. Again, we seek to have a lively Q&A discussion at the end, so please submit questions throughout the presentation. And finally, we'll end this about 11:55 a.m. Pacific to honor our commitment to bring you this content in less than an hour. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand the mic over to Dr. Angie Norbeck.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hannah. This webinar session, How to Get Your Instructors to Embrace New Technology Initiatives, is based on a recent experience that I've had launching a new technology. The agenda for this session today includes the background, the theory, the tips for introducing a new tech initiative, the buy-in, the digital distraction addressed, and the verification of usage. Launching a new tech initiative in a cosmetology school was a great learning experience for myself. Cosmetology programs are often instructor-led, on-campus and hands-on educational experiences. Similar to automotive, manufacturing, electrical, construction, culinary arts, and areas of healthcare, students learn by emulating their career goal in the classroom, clinics, and labs. A cosmetology school prior to adopting tech initiatives looks like this: printed textbooks, paper quizzes, exams, assignments, observations, evaluations, and skills testing, attendance sign-in sheets or punch card time clocks, spiral-bound appointment books, storage space, and lost or misplaced documents. A cosmetology school with technology looks like tablets and iPads, laptops, smartphones, ebooks, and apps, social media such as YouTube, Periscope, Instagram, and Snapchat, color control technology, virtual learning platforms, 3D interactive simulations, client services and appointment books, and time and attendance tracking software. Technological advances continue to have impacts on the workforce, and aligning our classrooms with real-world experiences is key to producing successful graduates. It is important that we understand the social science theory that best describes how adoption of new ideas, behavior, or product happens over time. The diffusion of innovation theory was developed by E.M. Rogers back in 1962. This brought us 5 established adopter categories. I'll start with the innovators. They are first to try. They're venturesome, willing to take risks, and jump on board easily. The early adopters embrace change opportunities and are comfortable with adopting new ideas. This is where I find myself often. Early majority are willing to adopt new ideas before the average person, but need success stories and evidence of effectiveness. The late majority are skeptical of change and only adopt after the majority have tried it. And lastly, the laggards. They are bound by tradition, skeptical of change, the hardest group to buy in, and are willing to put up a fight. This is a group not to avoid. Consider adding them to your implementation planning committee. This group loves the saying, "We've always done it that way." This is where I have found many of my instructors. Now that we understand the science behind the adoption of change, we can explore tips for introducing a new tech initiative. First is communication. Communicate clearly. Share the benefits. Those benefits may be improved student engagement and effectiveness, facilitated interactions between students and instructors, generated new learning opportunities, increased active learning, and supplemented learning experiences. Remember to focus on the value. For example, tedious and time-consuming tasks are now automated, such as attendance and grading. More time is available to spend mentoring and coaching students. And there's visible consistency among peers and students. The next is education. Encourage your instructors to be proactive in their approach to new technology. This is where you train, and train more. Make sure that you're customizing your training for all types of learners. During our training process at my institution, we utilize all 4 types of training throughout the process. You have visual learners who require pictures and diagrams and charts, such as handouts. Your auditory learners require lecture and group discussion formats. Your kinesthetic learners require a physical experience, such as hands-on. And your reading and writing learners require repetition of words or writing. And lastly, collaboration. Encourage instructors to collaborate with others, share best practices, and problem solve together. Observe colleagues and learn from one another, as well as be willing to learn from their students. These individuals are known as digital natives who were born into technology. A critical component to any tech initiative is the buy-in. It is often easiest to gain buy-in at the top level. So how do you move down the ladder? Address barriers. They are going to exist, and it's so important that you tackle them head on and not ignore them. There are 2 types of barriers to address. External technical barriers. Provide support to learn the new technology. Provide guidance on how to resolve issues, and offer refresher training on a quarterly or annual basis. Build technical training into professional development requirements for instructors. At my organization, we made sure to provide various platforms for support, not only within our own institution, but also using technology support from the New Tech Initiative. Some of that support and guidance that we offered was training via Zoom or Skype, as well as creating PDFs that outlined the criteria for the technology and how to best use it. Also some troubleshooting type initiatives within the document. And we also did hands-on interaction with the instructors and the students live, where we were all learning together in the same environment. There are going to be internal barriers. Listen and know the concerns. It's difficult at times to understand why change is happening and, what are the benefits and how to gain that buy-in. And sometimes it's just a matter of the instructors having the opportunity to voice their opinions and to have someone listen to their concerns. Empathize, because adapting technology can be overwhelming. Think back to maybe the first time you learned a new technology and how it was overwhelming for you, or it was going to have to require a new routine in your day or into your week. Put yourself in their shoes and be willing to have that empathy as you work towards the new initiative. Encourage the tech adverse to re-examine their mindset. So just because we've always done something some way doesn't mean that we have to continue to always do it that way. Maybe for them, the technology is something that they feel is not necessary, or it is something that may create more work for them. But it's important that they re-examine their mindset and how they really feel about the technology that's being introduced. Celebrate successes regardless of size. Many milestones are super critical during a tech initiative. Something as simple as having a celebration of everyone being able to log in, or all the students were able to log in, or a week's worth of usage, or a month's worth of usage. But celebrating regardless of size is very critical, and it helps establish that that the barriers are getting worked through, and that the individuals, the students and the instructors can see the benefits that are along the way. Digital distraction is one of the most common concerns among instructors, and we actually heard about this in some of our prior sessions today. as well as allowing personal devices in the classroom. It's real and it exists, and it's best addressed proactively. It's important to identify the intentions of technology used in the classroom. So how frequently is the technology going to be used? For example, if this is just for the attendance process, then it would be used at the start of the day, perhaps at lunch, and then in the afternoon when the class has ended. Maybe those are the only times that you would anticipate seeing that technology in the student's hand or out on the desk. Also, identifying specific apps or websites that will be used. All too often, it's very possible that individuals will have their technology, their personal devices, and they're on their Twitter or Facebook or Snapchat or what have you. So be clear on the expectations of what the intentions are of the specific applications that are going to be used. It may be something that is outlined in a syllabus for a specific class, or even within an assignment, identifying what the app is and how they can download it. Classroom management is also very important. Creating expectations and guidelines. This ensures that the students that are in the classroom understand that what the technology is being used for and why it's being used, as well as setting up technology use within your existing codes of conduct. Also student handbooks or classroom policies, again, utilizing perhaps a syllabus or an addendum to outline these are the expectations. This is when we will be using the technology. When you're not using the technology, this is where it needs to be. Some institutions will say when the technology is not being used, then it needs to be face down on the desk, or it's put away in an area until it's needed. So thinking through what that looks like and then having that specifically outlined in the expectations and guidelines is critical. Ensure your classroom is compelling to reduce reason to be distracted. If the students are finding that they're not engaged, or they'll use words like boring or bored, finding ways to compel them to be a part of the discussions, to be utilizing the technology appropriately. Think about creating assignments in the classroom that are going to combine not only the technology, but also combining in different presentations, or maybe there's some group collaboration that occurs. Some other options might be to have them go and look out on the internet for something specific. So if it isn't an actual app that they're using, perhaps it's, they're using a search to identify something that would bring more relevance into the classroom, to bring something that is more current. And that can help draw them away from using the technology in a way that does not work well with your lesson that you are conducting for that day. Verification of usage. This is really the final step to initiating a new technology. And it's really to make sure that the new tech is being practiced and utilized correctly by the instructors, as well as getting commitment from the instructors. One of the things that we did at our institution was observe. So once we had rolled out the technology, we went out into the classroom, observed the instructor and the students utilizing the technology. We were able to also offer support. So being there real time, hands-on, if someone wasn't able to download an app, or if they were not able to access a certain item, walking through with them one-on-one was really essential and really helped gain buy-in and helped the students and the instructors learn ways to be able to troubleshoot. So when we're not there, they're able to work together to be able to troubleshoot together. Other pieces of observation, whether that observation is done just if you're dropping in, or if you're doing, say, a quarterly observation on a class, you could possibly be intertwining that into, if you're observing the instructor's lecture, those types of things. So there's two different ways that you can go through the observation. Evaluate. So consider adding criteria to performance standards and performance reviews. Our instructors are, receive their annual performance review. So it's evaluating where does that fall within, where does the new tech initiative fall within, their job description, within their performance review, within, again, those observations, so that they understand just how important the new technology is, and that they're going to be held accountable to it. Being able to speak to, how are they doing in terms of performance? How are they utilizing it in the classroom? Are there areas that are available for improvement? And then also providing them with some of that insight. So if they are lacking in an area, kind of going back to what I had mentioned before about training and training more. So offering that as an opportunity to continue to develop their performance, that they're utilizing this skill, this technology. Validating through reporting metrics can definitely help in assisting identifying how well the item is being utilized. With the new tech that we initiated, one of the features and benefits of the platform was having the ability to pull on a monthly or daily or weekly basis to identify how often the tech was being used. Was it being used appropriately? Was anyone manually overriding items? And then kind of being able to identify, what were those items, and does it mean that we have a gap in the training? Do we need to provide more training? Or perhaps we need to go back to, the platform and look at making some adjustments and working with that vendor. So those were some critical pieces as we moved through this verification process. And now on a monthly basis, we're able to pull those reports, distribute them to our leadership, and then look for any areas of opportunity, but then again, also look for ways to celebrate. So maybe there are less manual changes being made, and celebrate the usage percentage as it improves over the length of time. Feedback is also very important. In order to keep optimizing the tech, you want to seek and solicit feedback from the users, so the instructors and the students. And it's important that they feel a part of new features or the possibility of functionality enhancements. They're using this on a day-to-day basis, and maybe they have an out-of-the-box idea or suggestion that can be utilized for future with this technology. The process of launching a new technology initiative definitely requires a strategic plan and multiple stakeholders to be successful. And those stakeholders, range from your, top leadership into the classroom with your instructors, with your students. All of these individuals are really very valuable and very important to the strategic plan. So having them be a part of that in the earliest pieces or parts of initiating the technology is absolutely critical. They can help also to bring others along. And so if you think back to the slide with the bell curve, if you've got, a good chunk of laggards, how do you bring them or mentor them with the majority, and to be able to gain that buy-in along the way? Knowing how individuals adopt a new tech initiative, considering tips for introducing the technology to gain buy-in and addressing digital distraction will support a successful implementation for the tech initiative. Throughout the process of introducing the new technology into the schools, as it was a school that is very hands-on with their education, and everything was truly pen and paper, the thought of digitizing anything was very scary and intimidating. For many users, it was something that they weren't comfortable with. I experienced individuals who still had flip phones. So trying to navigate through, the use of an iPad or another type of a device to be able to use the tech initiative. Those are all things that have to be considered during the implementation process, and really think about how to work through those challenges so that more people are comfortable with the technology. One of the things that's definitely improved in the school now that we have brought in this new technology is they're hungry for more. They're hungry to digitize forms that have always been pen and paper. They're looking at other apps that are out in the world that they would love to bring into the classroom. So I feel as though the technology may have initially been stressful or challenging. It really opened up the eyes to these individuals, and they're starting to see the benefits. They're starting to see the time that they're able to spend more with the students, and they're thinking more outside the box, and they want to have the ability to spend even more time. So it's been a very successful process. It was a lengthy process, but it's been a successful one. And it's one that will definitely continue to utilize what we've learned from this experience to further into future developments and future technology. Now I'd like to open up if there are any questions or comments.
Awesome, and thank you, Dr. Norbeck, for that wonderful presentation. And again, for the audience members, if you haven't submitted questions yet, please do so now. We actually did get a few emailed in before today's event started happening, so let's start with those while everybody else submits theirs. In your implementations, which barriers have been the hardest for you to overcome on your campuses?
I believe the barrier that was the most was the mindset of we've always done it this way. And the reason I say that is because the change in technology required a change in routine, a change in behaviors. And so it isn't something that the instructors could just embrace, and move on, or maybe pretend to embrace and move on. They absolutely had to, figure out that it wasn't going away and that they were going to need to use it. I think that was probably the toughest challenge, is just changing that mindset.
Wonderful. And we've just had the question, you mentioned it was a lengthy process. How long was your implementation process until you got from start to that point of embrace?
I think that it happened on multiple levels. And so when I think in terms of the length of time it took, I had some folks that jumped on the bandwagon right away. And I would say within like a month of using the technology. I would say the folks that took probably the longest, a good 6 months. And that was challenging. But again, it was changing behaviors, changing routines, understanding the benefits, as well as seeing how much more time they could be spending with the students rather than the time that was spent on pen and paper.
Great. And then what about big mistakes you feel you might have made early on in new implementations that you think you would learn from and do differently in the future?
One of the things that I talked about in the session today is who's on your committee, like who's on your planning committee. So when I look back and think about who was there at the start, I really would have gone back and changed the dynamics. I think that I would have had some of the individuals that were probably the most challenging with the change. I would have invited them to the table from the beginning. And I do that because not that I, want to have the challenges from the start, but I want to have the opportunity to see things through their lens and to understand how we can work through those challenges and their perception earlier on. And I think that that may have reduced the length of time it took to get a full embrace of the technology.
Wonderful. And then next up we have, what kinds of technology do you anticipate or envision becoming commonplace in schools in the future?
Well, I have to say that the attendance tracking system through CourseKey is amazing for our clock hour schools. And I really hope that that continues to spread throughout clock hour programs. I think that, the benefits of having all of the students be able to clock in at the same time. There isn't a line of people waiting to clock in and out. There's, less storage and filing cabinets and things to worry about. I also really think that I'd like to see more with observations being done digitally. And I know that's something that is common in our cosmetology school. We have a lot of points, evaluation points throughout their program where we need to do observations, and those are pen and paper. So I would be super excited to see those moving to digital type format. All of these things that are pen and paper are, cumbersome, and papers get lost and those types of things. So, being able to go to a paperless classroom, it really would be where I would see the future going.
Fantastic. And obviously I'm biased, but I agree with the first half of your answer, definitely. And next up is the presentation focused on getting instructor buy-in. Did you have any issue getting student buy-in?
I would say that for the majority, the students were probably much easier than the instructors. The reason I say that is that they all have their cell phones already. So having, the ability to actually it be okay to have their cell phone, I think they enjoyed or enjoy. There were definitely some students that weren't super excited about the change. But I think that's just because when you make a change to a time clock process that goes from rounding to the second, you have to change some of your policies. You also have to look at what type of an impact that has in a clock hour school. But I think overall, the students were far easier to gain buy-in and embrace the change with very little resistance.
Perfect. And it looks like we have one more ask right now. So we still have quite a few people on. So if anybody else still has questions, feel free to get those in. We do have more time together. In the meantime, the next question that is up is, where did it go? Why can't I read my handwriting? Sorry, I flipped a page in my notebook and now I lost my place. Okay, there it is. So would you recommend rolling out a new, technology at just one campus and kind of testing out how it goes, or doing an entire school if you have, say, 3 campuses?
I would recommend one. And if possible, one program on that one campus. And the reason I say that is because if you can find a smaller initial set to pilot that, if there are any kinks or bugs to work out, you're able to do that with a smaller group. And I will say that once you have that first group, they're great with getting the next group of people on board. So if you have 5 programs on a campus and you start with one and then you integrate the other ones, not only are you bringing in the new technology, but you've got these instructors that are already using the technology and understanding it, and they can help answer questions. And some of it too is like jealousy. I want to see that app, or I want to start using that resource. So I think that would be my suggestion.
Great. And then we've just had, what best practices did you use to challenge and retrain the, but we've always done it this way mindset step by step?
That's a good question. I think that reevaluating who the individuals are and, where their buy-in lies, where's the resistance, and being able to, again, if they're an individual that learns best hands-on, then making sure that they're getting that hands-on experience so that they can truly see what the benefits will be. I think that if the individuals who are in the situation that they are in where they don't feel that the change needs to be made, there does have to be some nudging along the way because inevitably you are making that change and you do want them to embrace it. I was lucky enough that I didn't have anyone say that they weren't going to use it. And I was lucky enough to say they were going to quit if they had to use it. But it's definitely a different mindset and being able to cater to what best suits those individuals so that they can understand the benefits associated with the technology and how it will improve their way of life in the classroom.
Perfect. And then next up is, what do you feel are maybe 3 to 5 positives or benefits that have come out of implementing technology in the classroom?
I would say the first one is collaboration and collaboration on various levels. So often when there's a technology initiative, it's often a top-down approach. And so having the ability to collaborate at the instructor level and the campus level was definitely important. I would say that the next would be innovation, and innovation in terms of not just using the technology, but as I mentioned, now I have more interest in other technology. I have an interest from these instructors that I thought would maybe be the toughest to embrace the technology, that are seeing other opportunities in the classroom that we could move to like a digital place. And I would say probably the third one would be just the time that was given back to the instructors to spend with the students. So that, again, they're not spending time manually, keying in something or adding something or those types of things. It's all automated. And so that time, it gives that back to them so that they can mentor and coach and tutor. And those, I would say, are the 3.
Great. And I'm going to give the audience another minute to see if they want to get any more last moment questions in. That did wrap up all the ones we've had so far. So give everybody a few more seconds and see if we have any more curiosity during this session. While we wait for oh, there we come. Were there any technical glitches? And if so, how did you overcome those?
I would say yes, there was definitely some technical glitches. We had a couple of students, as I mentioned, who didn't have like a smartphone or an iPad, so we had to get a little creative in that respect. I would say the other thing was just Wi-Fi access, data, those types of things, so that when we were rolling out the initiative, we had to really think about what is our current bandwidth, what do we have in terms of in the classroom, and how is that going to impact, because there are other things that we were using like ebooks and such. So I think kind of working through do we have the tools that we need to be able to run the application successfully.
Great. And then next up is, did you also have resistance from admin folks in the process? How was that addressed different from faculty to find the value of using new tech?
Can you repeat that question, Hannah?
Yeah. Did you also have resistance from admin folks in the process? And how was that addressed different from faculty to find the value of using new tech?
I would say that at the campus level, when we think in terms of like a campus leadership, so a director, a registrar, deans, I think that the only resistance that was really met at that level was the fear or concern of how the instructors or students were going to embrace the technology and how to work through those challenges. I think that at an administrative level, there was definitely a strong buy-in. There was definitely a desire to have the technology, but I think that there was still that fear of, on a day-to-day basis, how are the individuals that are going to be using it the most, how are they going to embrace the technology, and how to work through the resistance that they might have to deal with. And I think that with any technology, it's getting acclimated to it and understanding it. What does it do? Why does it do that? I think that just kind of comes with the territory, and the more time spent, providing the whys is really what helped benefit from an administrative standpoint, why the change need to happen, and what the benefits were going to be.
Nice. That's a great answer. And then next up is, did your school provide the devices? And if so, did they rent the devices and then return them at the end of the course? I think this was tied to the students who didn't have the tech.
Yes. So we had one student total that had a flip phone, so they weren't able to get the app, and it turned out that they actually had an iPad, so we didn't have to do any type of renting or purchasing of any kind, or checking out, which is a total plus. So all of our students have their own personal cell phone, or they can use their iPad to access the app.
Great. And then what were some of the particular metrics you used to evaluate the effectiveness and usage of the new tech?
I would say that one of the main components, because the technology was an attendance tracking system, and the reports were available on the dashboard for the technology on the website. So we're able to pull down and look at exactly percentages in terms of how many edits are being made to the attendance, how often the technology is being utilized. So there is just a plethora of reports that we have access to be able to measure those types of things, and then looking not only at like that higher level of usage, but also at the student level. So things like how much are they clocking in? Are they clocking out? Is somebody editing that for them? Is there a reason why the edit is being made? So there's so much information and so much data that we're able then to utilize. I would say in terms of like a metric system as far as percentages or goals, I don't know that we've necessarily defined what that looks like yet. But I think it's something we would definitely consider. At this point, less is good. So we trend in that direction on a monthly basis, as far as we had less of this issue this month. So that's a win. And then we keep moving forward.
Wonderful. And so I'm going to do one more last call for questions and give it about 30 more seconds and see if anybody else still has curiosity. All right, got another one. Did you ever survey students about their experience with the new app, i.e., did they like it, not like it? Did they find it easy enough to use, etc.?
I would say in terms of the specific technology, we have not actually asked those questions, which is a super awesome idea. I'm totally stealing that. But I think that, we do address technology as a whole on our students' satisfaction survey. And so, that kind of is all under one umbrella. But I think that that's a great suggestion to have it specific.
Great. Awesome. And that was the end of the questions. We still do have more time, so I'm going to start the wrap up, but if you want to get more questions in, feel free to interrupt and we can still grab those since we have about 10 more minutes together. But thank you so much, Dr. Norbeck. It's been a fantastic presentation. Really have loved the Q&A session so far. Thank you to everybody who's joined us, but especially you, Angie, for just so much expertise and all the great answers you've been giving on building that instructor buy-in and making sure that new implementations go smoothly. As a reminder to everyone else, we do have 7 sessions today. We're about halfway through the events. We have a few more coming up this afternoon. So if you haven't signed up for those, you can still go to CourseKey.com and sign up through the banner link at the top of the page. And then if you do want to subscribe to future events, you can add yourself to our mailing list. That's at the bottom of the page, of the website page. And that way you'll never miss an upcoming webinar, an infographic, case study, anything along those lines. And again, just thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Norbeck, and hope to see you guys in more sessions today.
Thank you, Hannah.